Shalom brothers and sisters who have arrived here on this channel. This video here will be a summary of everything that I want to tell you guys for the past week or so, but I've been unable to do videos because I'm very busy here with my new toddler and all of the stuff that is happening around my life here. However, this video here, I dreamed to answer Dr. Barry. I dreamed with him where I was answering his video, and that was even before all of the controversy with Steve Fletcher there. So before I begin this video, I want to say, especially to you, Dr. Barry, if you're watching this video, I simply love your channel. I love the way that you do things, the way that you teach things. You definitely have inspired me to be a better person. It is undeniable that you are a truly Christian, a bride of Christ. I love your videos. I love the way that you present this. And I simply learn a lot from you. A lot, just like I learn a lot from Pastor Sandy, from other watchmen as well that I have been watching since 2017. You are one of the best for me, if not the best for me. However, it is normal for us to disagree in some things or the other, and I dreamed this answer. I believe that that's how God wants me to say it to you. And the way that I'll be doing this video, it's not just like Steve Fletcher, because they were trying to attack you, and that's wrong. And no watchman should do this to another watchman, because we're all brothers here. So I disagree completely with Steve Fletcher on what he said and what he did. I'm doing this because I love you, because I want you to learn what I have received from God as well, and I want all of the people that also watch my channel and your channel to see and understand the simply information, good information that I want to try to say to you and to everyone else. So I dreamed this answer, and I really want you to watch it, because I believe it will be very good for you and everybody else that agrees with you in some points. And yeah, that's it basically. So the title of this video is, what does determine Passover? Is it the equinox, or is it the constellation of Aries? So I will begin this with your video here, the video of Dr. Barry, where he said some things, and I'll be pausing and then adding on to what he said, and then I'm gonna go back here to the PowerPoint to show more in-depth information here. So let's go here to his video. Amazing videos, by the way. One of 3 parts of the Rapture 7 years before 2030. I agree completely with this here. I believe we are on the verge of the rapture, and you guys will see by the end of this video what I have found, because I will also give you guys here some amazing information that me and my wife had while we were talking about the possibility that is coming up, and the amazing confirmation that we had as well. So by the end of this video, you will see, and you'll get very excited about the next few days. So this video here is part 1, starting at the minute 49 and 34. Let's watch together, and I'll be stopping here to add in to what he's saying.
This is a way I can bless him. Okay, so precession of the equinox. First of all, the Earth is round. A what? Well, round-ish, you know, it's a little wider in the middle. But
just to begin here, where do you get that the Earth is round? The Bible tells us that the Earth is a circle. It is. The circle is round. However, the information that is the way he is saying here, he didn't get this from the Bible, but from textbooks. But let's continue. I will talk about this later.
it spins around an axis, which we know the angle of the axis. And as it goes around, my head will be the sun. Okay? So the Earth goes around the sun, and that's one whole year. So when the Earth is facing the sun on this equal plane, the days and the nights are equal. Equinox. So at the exact moment of the spring equinox, the night and days are about the same, about 12 hours. And then in the fall, same thing. They're equinox, but heading towards the dark days. So from spring, we move towards summer. So the Earth is turning like this. And now the northern hemisphere is pointing towards the sun like almost all the time. And this is the summer solstice, or summer staying on you. So the heat is on. The heat is on. Okay? So that's how we get the summer solstice. Then it moves around, and now we got the fall or autumnal equinox. And then finally comes around, and now the northern hemisphere is facing away from the sun all the time, and the southern hemisphere is getting the heat. So now it's winter, and it's like it stays cold, and there's one day where it's the most coldest, and that's the winter solstice. Okay?
All right, so all of this that he said, we learned since our childhood in the public schools, in the textbooks, in all of the information that the people of this world provided us and claimed that this is true, although they cannot prove it whatsoever. So just to start off in this argument that he did, we have something that is called Polaris star. The star Polaris always stays in the northern hemisphere, and all of the stars go around the star of Polaris. So if we grab here his information, the way that he said to us, by itself you see that this doesn't make too much sense with Polaris, the star. Let me just put it here.
So from spring.
So imagine here, like this, being here where Polaris is. So right here, you can see Polaris on the northern hemisphere, and all the stars are going around Polaris. If you keep going the way he said it,
we move towards sun.
You can see that those here are parallel lines. It is impossible for you to see the same star Polaris all over the years, because the Earth won't be perfectly aligned to the northern star. So by itself, this is just
summer. So the Earth is turning like this, and now the northern hemisphere is pointing towards the sun like almost all the time. And this is the summer solstice.
It's just a quick way for you to understand that there is something wrong with this theory that the Earth is a ball.
Or summer staying on you. So the heat is on. The heat is on. Okay? So that's how we get the summer solstice. Then it moves around, and now we got the...
So take a look at it here. Basically, the same way, it's all the other way. So it is not possible for you to see the same star Polaris at the top of this ball Earth if you are going around the sun. But this is not the main issue that I want to claim here. I want to say about the idea of the equinoxes. Let's go to the part where he said about this.
So now it's winter, and it's like it stays cold, and there's one... Okay, darkest day of the year, December 21st. This one's like March 21st, the spring equinox. Okay, so from here, it's moving like that. So from the spring equinox, now there's a mathematical formula called the precession of the equinox. So as the Earth's going around the sun over 2,000 years, there's a constant little tug on this top axis, causing it to turn a little bit. So the Earth sees the sun, and then behind it is the constellation, and that's how we know what constellation the sun is in. Over the course of 26,000 years, the Earth will have its equinox go through all 12 constellations. Isn't that amazing? Or I guess it's 13. You know, you count that 13th one, because it's every 2,000 years it moves to the next one. So 2,000 years ago, the sun, the equinox and the sun should point towards the sun being in the lamb, like Josephus said. But 2,000 years from that, the precession of the equinox has moved it. Now the sun should be in Pisces. Okay, so we go back to the beginning of the Earth, 6,000 years ago. Okay, from here, go 2000, 2000, 2000. And at the time of Adam, in 3970 BC, so you can put on your stellarium, negative 3970. And the equinox now, or where the sun would be at Passover, is in Gemini. Gemini is the story of the immortal God.
So we see this, we perceive that the equinox is always changing the constellation, because I said in my previous video, the Earth is going sideways every 2000 years. And indeed you can perceive this. However, does the equinox is what determines Passover, or is the constellations, which are supposed to be the numbers of the constellations, the number of the months, that determines Passover? So although we see here the equinox going and changing the constellations, does it also change the constellation in which it starts Passover and the month of the Lamb, or the month of Gemini, for example? So it's gonna further add in here about this information, but let's go here to this part. I went to check here all of the starts of the first month over the years. So the first month of the year over the years. You are seeing here a screenshot of Stellarium, where it's the 29th day of March on the year 1445 BC, or before Christ. And that's our estimate period of time when the Exodus happened. And I have this here on this website, or a couple websites here. So you can kind of guess that the Exodus happened around 1447 or 1446 BC. Some other websites said 1446 BC when the Exodus happened. So it is safe to assume 1445 or 1444 here, because 10 years more or 10 years less, it doesn't change much. So when God said to Moses, this is for you the first month of the year. So the year starts now, this is the first month of the year. What did Moses saw in the sky? Moses saw in the sky this. He saw the sun in the constellation of Aries, as you're seeing here. The moon, the new moon here, visible in the constellation of Taurus. And it is right after the equinox. So the 29th of March here, a couple days after the equinox, that's the period of when the body starts to get ready to be for the first fruit of barley. So barley is starting to get ready to be harvested. So that's what God told Moses, and that's what we see here in the constellations 1445 BC. Now let's go to the year, or around the year when Jesus died and resurrected. So here is the year 32 AC, or after Christ. You are seeing here the 31st of March of the year 32 AC. And you see what here? You see the sun in Aries, you see the moon in Taurus, and a couple more days later, then after the spring equinox. Alright, you're seeing this. Now let's add 1000 years to this date, and we go to 1033. And here you see the 3rd of April of the year 1033 AC. And the sun is still in Aries, the moon in Taurus. And now we're going to go one more 1000 years later than this, and what I believe it will be the month of the Lamb, or the first month of the year, on the year 2033. This is here in the 29th day of April, and you see here the same, the sun in Aries and the moon here in Taurus. Now, what did the Jews, the church, and most of the watchmen consider to be the first month of the year in this year of 2023? Well, in 2023, they call this the first month of the year. Clearly, you see that the sun is in Pisces, the moon is entering the constellation of Aries, and it is just a couple days after the spring equinox, so the 23rd of March. Does this sound correct for you? Does this seem correct for you? Because going back all the way to when God told Moses when should be the start of the year, the start of the first month of the year, you see this in the skies, and then it keeps going. Jesus' time, 1,000 years after Jesus, supposedly 2,000 years after Jesus, but this is what they are calling the first month. If you simply don't have any technology whatsoever, forget about all of the dates here, forget about this. Just look at the skies, just look at the constellations, the sun, moon, and stars, and try to perceive what do you see with the sun, moon, and stars, because you don't have any Gregorian calendar, any date, you don't have a clock, a watch. Just look at the skies and try to perceive. Does this seem like the first month for you, or does this seem like the first month for you? So which one fits better based on plain observance of the skies? So this or this? I think that just like me, you can clearly see that it fits better that the sun in Aries always be the first month. So it doesn't matter for us if the equinox happens before or after the sun is in Aries. The month of the Lamb will always be when the sun is in Aries. And if you have absolutely no technology to tell the time, and you can only rely on the constellations to tell you, you obviously cannot look directly at the sun to see in which constellation the sun is, but the new moon of the new month will always be in the following constellation after the sun. So if you spot the new moon in Taurus, the sun will always be in Aries. In this case here, if you see the new moon in Aries, the sun will always be in Pisces. And then on ancient times, the equinox used to happen when the sun was in Aries. Now the equinox is happening when the sun is in Pisces. But that doesn't change the month of the Pisces or the month of the Lamb, the month of the Aries. That's what I'm trying to explain here. If we go here towards Wikipedia and search about Passover, we can kind of see some very interesting things here. So it's a biblical Jewish Hebrew, but let's go here to date and duration. Passover begins on the 15th day of the month of Nisan, or in the middle of the month of Nisan, which at the present falls between March 26th and April 25th on the Gregorian calendar. The 15th day begins in the evening after the 14th day, and the Seder meal is eaten at the evening. Passover is a spring festival, so even if it is the Passover, the month of Aries, happens 1 month after the spring equinox, is still spring. So the 15th day of Nisan typically begins in the night of the full moon after the northern vernal equinox, March equinox. However, due to leap months falling after vernal equinox, Passover sometimes starts on the second full moon after vernal equinox, as in 2016. In here, you see what they called first month and what I believe it was truly the first month in 2023. So the 22nd of April 2023, that's what I believe to be the first month of the year when the sun is in Aries, so it has to be the month of the Aries because the sun is pointing Aries. Despite of when the equinox is, the sun is telling us the constellation in which we are. So it's very, very different here. So that's when I believe that's the first month. And the 22nd of April is the second new moon after the spring equinox. Just like it sometimes happens even in the Jewish calendar. So Passover sometimes starts on the second full moon after the vernal equinox. And they have an insurance to Passover not start before spring. The tradition, so pay attention to this word tradition, in ancient Israel held that the Lunar New Year, the first day of Nisan, would not start until the barley was ripe. So the barley being ripe is a tradition of the ancient Jews that did not have the technology that we have today to perceive this change in the equinox, but they used to do this in order for the Passover, the first month, happens after the spring equinox. So this was a test for the spring equinox, not the test for Nisan, or the first month. If the barley was not ripe, or the various of other phenomena indicated that the spring was not yet imminent, and they added a 13th month, Adar 2. However, since at least the 4th century, the intercalation has been fixed mathematically according to the Metonic cycle. So they have here tradition of the barley, tradition of spring, and now they fixed with a cycle of the 19 years that some rabbis said. So they are basing their first month, their beginning of the month, based on tradition since the 4th century. We shouldn't trust the Jews, especially at this moment, because the Bible tells us what? The Bible tells us that God hates their feasts because they are completely wrong. They don't accept the Messiah. So they are spiritually wrong. They're spiritually out of the place, out of the correct place that God wants us to be. So to trust that the first month is when the sun is in Pisces, like this, you gotta put a lot of faith in the Jews being correct in their traditions, and I don't think that this is what we should do. I think we should do it like this. Correct here the sun in Aries and the moon in the following constellation, because that's how you would perceive without any help of technology. You wouldn't be able to look at the sun, but you look at the moon. It is the sliver of a new moon. You see the constellation where it is happening, and you know that the sun is right in the constellation before it. So that's how you perceive without technology, without dates, without calendars, without a clock, just by looking at the skies. And I know this is happening after about a month after equinox, the March equinox, but the equinox by itself is a tradition. It doesn't define the month of the Lamb, the first constellation. And you can see here that the Aries used to be drawn like this, so you see that it is still inside the constellation of Aries. And I know that Dr. Barry tells us that there's a story happening here with the precession of the equinox that tells us a story about, I believe he said in his video as well, but this video here will be too large if we watch it all. You guys can watch it by yourselves. But he says that those two mean Adam and Jesus coming to rescue Adam, although I believe it could mean Abel and Cain and Abel. And then the equinox changed it to the bull, which would be supposedly on the Exodus story, then on Aries, and now on Pisces. Although I see that there is a story of happening with the precession of the equinox, that doesn't change the start of the year for us, especially if you just saw here that what Moses saw as the first month would be this. So sun in Aries and a new moon in Taurus. So in every year this used to be correct, and this is correct, but only in 2023 that's what they decided, that the sun has to be in Pisces for the first month of the year. And That doesn't sound correct to me, even though there is a story happening with the change of the equinox. So, yeah, let's go back here. So, we see here the following. If we search September equinox, and we go here, the equinox may be taken to mark the end of astronomical summer and the beginning of the astronomical autumn in the northern hemisphere. Constellation. The point where the sun crosses the celestial equator southward is called the first point of Libra. How interesting that they are calling this the first point of Libra. And then, however, because of the precession of the equinoxes, the point is no longer in the constellation of Libra, but rather in Virgo. So the solar point of the September equinox passed from Libra to Virgo in this date here, and will enter Leo in this date here. But it is originally called the first point of Libra. And if we search March equinox here, the same thing happened. So in the constellation, the point where the sun crosses the celestial equator is called the first point of Aries. So there are two original constellations marked since ancient times, which is Aries and Libra. Precisely those, the first and the seventh constellation, precisely those constellations in which the year used to start before Moses, and started to start after Moses. So you see, it's the first point of Aries and then first point of Libra. Those two constellations here that used to determine the equinox, but the equinox has changed. But at least determine the beginning of the year. And to continue here, what Dr. Bear has said, you saw him believing. I believe he is wrong. He doesn't know he is wrong, but he is wrong basically because he believes on this. He believes on this lie that has been told for a long, long time, which is the Earth being like this. The Earth being like this. That's the biggest lie that we have today. The biggest lie that we have today. All of the if you search for conspiracies, that's the biggest one. That's the deepest one. You will see that this lie has been propagated for so long, since our fathers and grandfathers' childhood. They believed on this and they insisted on this, and that so much that this lie became truth, and then most of us just accepted this as it was true. But when you start to question it, you will see that this is not correct, especially if you are a Bible believer. So what I want to say to you guys is this. This is the path of stars as we see in the northern and in the southern hemisphere. So take a look at this. That's the path of stars that we see happening here in the northern and south hemisphere. As you can see, it is circular. It's perfectly circular. So the stars are going around one perfectly point here in the northern hemisphere. The point here is a star called Polaris. And I find it very comical that some Bible believers, actually unfortunately most Bible believers, firmly say that the earth has about 6,000 years since Genesis, yet they believe in this. They believe in this nonsense here, because it was a lie propagated for a very long time. So take a look at the way the textbooks and the Freemasons and many others worldly agencies tells us that the world is. So they tell us it's like this, it's like a round, it's like a ball. But if you start to see and perceive here, if this makes sense, looking at the same polarity star, if you take a look at this and start to question, you will see that this does not make sense. Because by itself here, you are seeing that those lines here are parallel lines. So it is impossible for they to point at the same polarity star to make this perfect circle that we just saw in the previous video here. So as the Earth supposedly goes around the Sun, all of these points here cannot match. They cannot match because it is parallel lines. So as you can see here, we see 4 parallel lines that supposedly, when the Earth is going around the Sun, it's pointing the same star polarities to make the circle that we just saw watching the stars moving on Earth. So by itself you can see that that is not possible just by this. But imagine so many other information. For example, if here is midday and here is midnight, when the Earth goes around all the way here, like this, so here is midday, here's midnight. If the Earth goes around here, then here is midday, or supposedly to be midday, and here is supposedly to be midnight, but the Sun is lightening the midnight hour, and there is dark in the midday. They try to fix this with some adding 1 more degree every turn of the Earth to try to make this work, but this is just a reverse engineering of what God did in the Bible. And if this was supposed to be all that it is, if the Earth was supposed to be like this, by itself you see that does not work. But they tell us that the Earth is like this. The Earth is not just going around the Sun, but the Sun is also moving. So in their idea, this is what they are telling us that it's happening. So if it was already impossible for the same star to always be in the same position in the northern hemisphere, in this situation here, that's completely impossible. Completely impossible. So this is just a pure nonsense here that they are telling over and over and over again since our childhood. That's why many people are deceived by this theory here that does not make a single sense. So imagine Earth like here. How can the northern star polarities be in the same position over the course of all of the thousands of years that we had here? It's perfectly going, the stars going perfectly around in a circular motion, while the Earth is like this. This is totally nonsense. Now imagine they going and leaving planet Earth on a spaceship. They tell us that the Sun is moving at 100,000 miles per hour. So the Earth has to be following the Sun at least 100,000 miles per hour. So imagine a spaceship leaving Earth at 12,000 miles per hour. So the spaceship leaves Earth and then never again get to the Earth again, because it will be behind. It will be left behind while the Earth is following the Sun. Or you can try to manipulate that the spaceship that leaves Earth is actually moving at 100,000 miles per hour plus the 12,000 miles per hour when it's leaving Earth. And then if you leave this Earth at 112,000 miles per hour following the Sun here, you probably cannot ever stop. Otherwise, if you stop to turn around, you'll be left behind or be crushed by planets moving at 100,000 miles per hour. So this does not make any single sense, and it's very comical that Bible believers believe on this nonsense here, because this is a theory that Satan gave to the world and make people believe in this, because they want people to believe into this nonsense. The nonsense that nothing exploded 13 billion years ago and all these dots here became stars, and these stars started to crush other rocks, and then one rock became a planet perfectly aligned to the stars, and then they had cells appearing out of nowhere and growing, and then becoming fish, and then the fish got out of the water, became this reptile thing, and then the reptile became bigger reptiles, and then it became mammals, and then mammals became apes, and then eventually apes became mankind here. That's what they are trying to tell the world, deceive the world with this crazy theory here of the evolution. So the round Earth, the idea that the Earth is round and it's going around the sun, this is a completely lie that exists to give basis to evolution and to billions and billions of years, to give people an idea that we are dust of the stars, we don't matter, we are alone in this universe that is random, chaotic. That's not true. That's completely wrong. This idea here is a lie that has been told for a long time. If you believe in the Word of God, so you can see plainly and read about this, that the earth is like this. So the earth does not move. You have the verses here. There are limits on the earth. You also see that the earth has corners. The earth has pillars. The earth has a face. You can see the earth from the top of the tree. You can see from the top of a mountain. You see that the sun moves and not the earth. There are many sun anomalies here, and especially here, the earth was created before the sun in the Word of God. So this is all the verses that tells us the shape of the world that we live in, and it is not a ball like they are trying to tell you, and that deceives many people, especially many Christians that are still grasping into that idea, although the Bible clearly states that that's not the case here. And the best verses that I like here is the first one here, Isaiah 40:22, which tells us that, let's read together, Isaiah 40:22, he sits enthroned above the circle of the earth. So the earth is a circle, it's not a ball. This word here in the original text is circle. There is a difference with the word ball. They knew this difference, they had different words, and still the word here is circle. What else here? Another one that I simply love is this, Job 38 verses 13 and 14. I love this one here because it plainly tells us this. The earth takes shape like clay under a seal. So the earth takes a shape like clay under a seal. So you can clearly see that the earth takes shape like this. So that's the correct format of the earth. It's taking shape like a clay under a seal. So you see the border here, which is the limit of the waters inside the earth. This is ice called Antarctica, and the continents are the dry land inside here, this circle that was created by God. And also another one that I simply love is Joshua 10 and 12. You can read by yourself here, but basically tells us that the sun stopped and didn't move for a whole day. So just imagine that happening in this nonsense here. So imagine the sun stopping for one full day. The sun is supposedly going at 100,000 miles per hour, but because Joshua asked God and demanded that the sun stops, then the sun suddenly stopped from 100,000 miles per hour to zero, and the earth and all the planets as well. and after one day they continue to move at 100,000 miles per hour. This is completely nonsense. It's even comical for people to believe in this, because that's completely uh, that's a complete lie. So the sun moves in Joshua and not the earth. I know that Dr. Barry also said that we revolve around the sun because we are like the bride and the sun is like the bridegroom, and we are going around the sun just like in the traditions of the Jews. However, in the Bible, you have never seen uh, you have never seen they tell us that the earth is like the bride. The earth is like the stage of where everything is happening. The bride in the Bible, if you are looking at the stars and the constellations, the bride is the moon, and the moon indeed goes around the sun, just like in this tradition. So, if you remember Joseph of Egypt, his dream, he dreamt that the sun and the moon bowed to him, and then his father said, "Why are you telling us that me and your mother will bow to him?" So, the sun, if the sun is a bridegroom, then the bride would be the moon, not the earth. The earth is a stage of the stage of where everything is happening, and not the bride, as Dr. Betts said. So it is very important for us to clarify here. Now, if you understand the concept that the earth is a circle like this, then it becomes very, very easy for you to perceive the dates, the seasons, the months, the years, and everything that God has created for us, because it's perfectly like the circle clock, not a ball, but a circular clock that makes it easy for us to understand. I know that this video is becoming very dense in information, but I believe it will be very good for everybody to perceive this at this moment, because if we all get to the same belief that we are indeed on 1 month after what the Jews and the church are saying, then we can be more ready to perceive the dates that we are going through and the high watch dates in which we are about to enter here. One thing that I have to give credit for Dr. Barry is that he is correct, perfectly correct, when he says that Ascension Day is Shavuot, so Shavuot is Ascension Day, and that Shavuot is not Pentecost of Acts 2. So Dr. Barry was the first one to teach this in this manner, and he is completely correct about this, although other channels were like attacking him for this, but he is perfectly correct. Ascension Day is Shavuot. It is not a feast by itself or a date by itself 10 days before Shavuot. That's incorrect. Ascension Day is Shavuot, and Pentecost that people tells us in Acts 2 is not Shavuot. Pentecost is the feast of wine. So Dr. Barry is perfectly precise in these claims here, and the earth as we see in this format here will tell you why precisely. So as you were seeing here on the sky clock, the sun as the hour pointer and the moon as the minute pointer, they are both pointing at the constellation of Pisces. In this configuration here, as the sun and the moon moves, you will see that the seventh day, or the Shabbat, the rest day, will always fall in the positions of the moon, or the phases of the moon. So the first quarter of the moon would be the 7th day. The second quarter of the moon, or when the moon is full, will be the 14th day. The third quarter will be the 21st day. And then the last quarter here, when the moon is new again, invisible, it will be the 28th day. So that's the rest day, the 7th day, the Shabbat that people tells us, happening in this earth as we are seeing here in the sky clock. So for example, if we go around for 1 month, it will go towards all the constellations, and then now it is pointing the constellation of Aries, and then it shifts like this So it's always perpendicular here, one constellation to the other. It's always like an X here, a cross here. It's always like this. So for example, now we are seeing the sun and the new moon, or the invisible moon, pointing at the constellation of Aries. As it goes to the first quarter here, we'll see that this happens. So the moon is like half. It is visible only the half, about 50%, and that's the first Shabbat. So the first Shabbat, the 7th day of the first month here, because the sun is in Aries. Then it goes one more quarter, and then the moon is full here. The moon will be full, 14th day. That's Passover, because the moon will be pointing the constellation that is opposite to the constellation of Aries. So we see them calling the first point of Aries and then the first point of Libra. Those two used to be changed. The year used to begin here before Moses in the constellation of Aries, of Libra, and now it begins in the constellation of Aries. So those two are the markers for God and ancient times, ancient people, of when the year started. So here is Passover because the sun is in Aries, or moving towards the constellation of Taurus, and the full moon is happening here in Libra. That's precisely Passover, the 14th day. Then we go one more quarter, and then that's the end of the feast of unleavened bread. So the feast of unleavened bread begins in the 15th day and goes all the way into the 21st day. That's the Shabbat. And then the textbook of the Bible tells us that after the Shabbat, because it begins, the Passover begins on a Shabbat. So after the Shabbat, you count 7 more Shabbats until the feast of Shavuot. So imagine like this. So this is the end of the feast of unleavened breads. That's the end of the Shabbat. Now you count 7 more Shabbats. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The feast of Shavuot will always be on a full moon, and it will be on the full moon of the 3rd month. So we'll go 1 month, that is 4, 1 more here, 5th, 6th, 7. So the feast of Shavuot, the feast of weeks, is not today or yesterday as some watchmen there, some Christians were telling us. The feast of the Ascension Day, that is Shavuot, will happen on this next full moon here. For us, will be on June 3rd and 4th. That's the true date for Shavuot on the calendar of the Jews, because they are 1 month ahead. For us, it will be the full moon of when the sun is in the constellation of Taurus, which will be second Passover. So for us, second Passover, for the Jews, the church, and people following the Jews, they are wrong in this as well, but that's supposed to be the true Feast of Weeks, Shavuot. Because you're counting Shabbats here, you're not counting 50 straight days on the Gregorian calendar or in the tradition of the Jews. You are counting Shabbats. You have to remember that 2,000 years ago, or 3,000 years ago, there was no computers, there was no calendars, there was no watch or clocks in your hand, no phones. So you can only see the sun, moon, and stars moving around you to perceive the time. So most people had this basic idea of when the stars, the sun, moon changes, in order to understand the times and the seasons that they were. And now we have all this technology, but still people are trying to adapt everything towards the new form, instead of understanding the ancient form without technology and apply it to today. That's what we are doing here, applying the ancient view into today. So 1 more quarter here, you see the moon will be back at the constellation of Aries. That's when the moon disappears, because it goes around the sun. And then the sun will be pointing the constellation of Taurus, and that's the 2nd month. The moon will only be visible again in the first month here, when it is visible in the constellation of Gemini. So the first sliver of the first day of the second month, the sun will be pointing Taurus, and right next to it, the first sliver of the moon will be in the constellation of Gemini, being seen by everybody in the skies. That's the first day of the second month. So as you're seeing, it's not very difficult for us to perceive the way that the ancient used to do, especially with the technology that we have today. It is very simple for us to understand. And by the way, once the month changes, then also the numbers change here. So the 7th day will be here in the lion, and then always perpendicular to the start of the month. So that's how it all works. By the way, I know that there are many people around the internet saying that the month begins with the full moon instead of the new moon. And after many studies about this as well, I perceive that this is not correct, because as you can see here, the pointers have to be together to be the start of the new moon, the new month, just like in a clock. But also for the Jews, just like the day starts at dusk, so the next day for the Jews starts at 6 p.m., which for them would be I believe that the 12th hour there. So the day starts at dusk, and then the light of the day comes in the middle of the day. So the 12th hour, that would be the 6 a.m. for us, and then the day fades again into the dark for another day to begin. So just like for the Jews, the day beginning at dusk and going to full and then going to dark again, that's just how the moon works as well. So the new moon starts when the new moon is visible, goes to full, and then fades again for the next month. So just like the day is, also is the month for the Jews. So the new moon visible, the sliver of the new moon, has to be the beginning of the month. You can see here in the sky clock, and also you can understand this if you understand how the day works for them. So basically that's what I want to tell everybody, and also Dr. Barry. I'm not sure if you started to watch this video, you are all the way here in this minute here. It's about already 1 hour of video, I guess. Yeah, it's about 1 hour of video. But I try to explain the best that I can about this, the Earth being like this. I know that many people that still believes in the Earth being like a ball has a lot of questions, a lot of answers to be done, and I plan to do a video about this if we have time, and I will call this this video here, the BCE, Biblical Circular Earth. I plan to do a video about this to answer more questions, such as, but what about the men going to the moon in 1969? Or what about the International Space Station? Or what about the spacewalks that we see on YouTube? Much more questions that you might have because of this change in paradigm, in the idea of the form, the shape of the Earth. If you have more questions, I'll be answering them when I prepare this video for you guys. It's called BCE. I'm calling Biblical Circular Earth from now on, instead of the FLAT Earth, because the algorithm in YouTube, it understands when we call that it is FLAT, and it blocks, it stops the video from being sent and being propagated. So we are calling this the Biblical Circular Earth from now on to escape the algorithm of YouTube. So basically that's the place that you truly live here. You see that the sun, moon, and stars revolves around the earth. The earth is like the stage. You see that the waters are trapped together inside here by this big wall of ice called Antarctica. The continents here are right here in the middle. We see here how the day works and how the seasons also works with this the change in the position of the sun when it lights the earth. So that's how truly it is, based on the Bible, based on observations. And if you have more questions about this, pay attention to this video that, if we have time, I'll be doing in order to explain this reality that we live in. That will clear your mind. So if you happen to still believe in this round earth, I tell you to get rid of all of the evolutionary and Masonic concepts of the earth, and then your mind will be clearer for you to understand the earth, the place that you live, clearer to understand the Moedins, the feasts of the Lord, clearer to understand the Bible, and so much more. So if you get rid of all of the thing that you learned from Freemasons and evolutionary concepts of the earth, your mind will be clearer. That's the message that I want to tell everybody here that stuck with us all the way into this moment. Now that you hanged on all the way until now here, 1 hour of video, I hope that you understood everything that I wanted to say. Now let's go here towards the place that we are right now. So the place that we are right now in time. So we are this little ship here, and when I made this graph here for you, this slide for you, we were all the way in January. But so far we have passed all this high watch time frames that we had, and we're now moving here to approach the month of June. So let's move together here through all of these places that we were and go towards the place that we are right now. So we've been through all of this, we passed Passover, and we're now approaching the month of June, which is around the middle here of the second true month because of the constellation of Taurus. The sun is in Taurus, so it has to be the month of Taurus. The month of Taurus always is the second month because it's the second constellation. So although the equinox is 2 months ago, the sun is pointing the second constellation, so it has to be the second month. So for us, the biggest high watch that we have right ahead of us is the second Passover high watch. So everything that was expected about the second Passover one truly was the first Passover. So when you watched the channels talking about the second Passover, truly was the first Passover, and now everything that they said applies to now. And this is very interesting because right here in the second Passover, also talking about the second month is associated with the flood, the deluge, and also associated with Israel. At this moment here that we have right ahead of us, especially here in a few days actually, this is very significant because for the Jews and most of the Christians and most of the watchmen, although they are wrong in this as well, for them it is supposed to be true Shavuot. So the Feast of Weeks starting on the full moon, the next full moon will be for us the second Passover full moon. For them it's very interesting because that's when they receive the proposal of marriage. If a marriage happens on this time, precisely on the second Passover, many prophecies and patterns will be fulfilled precisely to the point where we are right now. But furthermore, we have that right here we are within the limit. The limit, which is the 4th of June. So if you watched my previous video, I talked about the last limit here. And the 4th of June is the last limit here of patterns to work precisely with what we understand to be correct according to the Bible. So the time frame that we have here is this. The Noah enters the ark on the 1st of June for us, and the flood comes on the 7th of June. The limit here for us is the middle point, the 4th of June, which will be second Passover. And it's very interesting because many channels here are talking about possible economic collapse because of this problem with the United States. So you guys are seeing what's happening with the United States if they don't reach a deal here to go over the limit that they established for credit, for borrowing money. By June 5th, they would enter a default, which means they will have no money to pay security and many other things that the government relies on. So imagine that supposedly this week, this first week of June, precisely when it is the limit for us here, it is the feast of, or the association with the flood, also association with Israel here. Suppose that this happens here. That will be the perfect moment to have an economic collapse with war with Israel, both together, and the rapture also, that will lead to eventually the coming of the Antichrist by this fall. And that works very, very well because this is happening inside the government in the United States, and it works because we are within this last limit. So if you watched my previous video, you saw this, the creation of this slide here. And then what is the last limit? We reached 2030 to be the return of Christ on the Feast of Trumpets, because he was born in the Feast of Trumpets. He surely has to return in the Feast of Trumpets, the first Feast of Fall, to destroy the armies of the Antichrist. And that's in the correct calendar is on the 28th of October 2030. If we subtract 2,520 days, which is 7 prophetic years from this date, we get to the maximum limit date for the start of the tribulation, or the peace agreement with many by the Antichrist, to be on the 4th of December 2023. And then we have patterns in the Bible that tells us that we should leave about 180 days or 6 months before this date, which falls for us on the 4th of June, all the way up into the 7th of June of 2023, to be the rapture and start of chaos. So if we don't go to be raptured by the 4th or the 7th of June at maximum limit, then that would imply for us that we have less than 180 days or less than 6 months until the day of the start of tribulation. That has to happen in this moment here in order for the world to have 7 prophetic years until the return of Christ. So if we don't go on this date here, in this moment of time here, then that would tell us that a form of pattern that the church should leave 6 months or 180 days, just like the feast on Esther one. That is the first pattern to kind of crumbles down, because we should have at least a 6-month gap before the start of tribulation. But take a look at this. Very interesting as well. If we go back all the way to 1993 years before this date that we are now, we get to the date of the crucifixion and the resurrection of our Messiah, Jesus Christ, or Yahushua HaMashiach. And his Passover happened on April 6th, or 6th of April of the year 30. So very interesting. So Jesus Passover was on the 6th of April of the year 30, and we're expected to leave this earth on the 4th of June of the 23rd year. So it is like a mirror date, as you can see here. So he resurrected, he died on the cross 6th of April. We supposedly to leave on the 4th of June. So I found this very, very interesting here, that we are looking at this date as a limit and also a possibility, and has a connection all the way to Jesus Passover. If this wasn't the enough information that I had for you guys, I have something even bigger, So let's go here to the navigator, and most of you guys have already seen this video, iPad Go 2, done 9 years ago by the Illuminatis and those that control this world. And in this video here, they provide us very key informations about when the Antichrist will come, what will happen. And we watched this on a slow motion to further examine this, and it's very interesting what we found out, because you see here the most replayed time frame is this here. You see the character here being a person with nothing in his mind, being controlled by the serpent through the medium, being also injected by pharmakia here that they offered people, as you see here. But take a look at this moment that appears in his eyes, as the devil, the media, the television devil talks in their empty brains. You see the following here that starts the chaos. So you see here in his eyes NASCAR, so the markets here. So you see, read here in his eye, markets plunge, so markets plunge, so economic collapse. And also in his right eye you see here war, coverage. So the beginning of chaos here, according to this video, is an economic collapse and at the same time war. And the next scene here, you see airplanes striking a religious building, so a religious war at the same time as an economic collapse. So if you have seen here this line, is it possible that the limit would be in the first week of June to be this economic collapse? Because if the US enters default, that would be the best moment for the enemies of the US to strike allies of the US, as an example, Israel. So we're seeing that Iran is building the bomb in underground facilities there, the nuclear bomb. We are seeing that they are preparing for war everywhere. We're seeing the China preparing to invade Taiwan. We're seeing Russia sticking nukes on Belarus. So they are preparing a huge war, this Third World War that we are seeing cooking up as of right now. So if the United States enters a default, a economic collapse, then at the same time you can expect the war to happen, and this will be a religious war as well, because enemies will try to attack Israel and so on, or in the other way, because they will try to do a attack that prevents this from happening. So you see this being a possibility, as the economic collapse happens together with the war coverage. And then you see here, after this, that's the first time you see, oh, of course, you see here 10 crows, which should be the 10 kings that will have power for 1 hour with the Antichrist to govern the world or prepare the world for him. And that's the first time you see here the Antichrist appearing in the scene like this. So you see him coming here after this war event. So these are the chaos event, the chaos that will bring the Antichrist to bring his new world order. So they are telling us here through this. And you also see here a nuke, a woman of the Islamic religion crying with his baby dying here. And in this video you see kind of the children fighting in this war. So you see many interesting confirmations here. The communism, they are drowning in their own vomit. So they will be drowned in their own vomit. All of this chaos in preparation for the Antichrist to come. They tells us that when the Antichrist come, he will bring this change. Here also you see God pointing the left behind church. So God pointing left behind church here. That is like the adulterous church that was left behind, old and with many sins. But I want to go all the way until the revealing of the Antichrist, because everything happens, there are chaos happening, and then all of the religions, they kind of convert into accepting this one world ruler, which will be the Antichrist. And he is revealed, he comes out of the Catholic Church, it seems like. So as you can see here, he comes out of this door here, and this door is the door of this Catholic Church, this door here that he just left. So we know that the Catholic Church was trying to get the bones of David to try to clone or create for them a Messiah. So very interesting, this information. As soon as he's about to be revealed, the church is destroyed. See the church being destroyed here because they will start to worship this being here, this Antichrist. And you will see this. He is revealed right here. That's when he is revealed. You see this cryptic information, but you see that here is like the sun. And if you pay attention to this here, you will see that this is a scorpion tail. So the sun will be in the constellation of Scorpio when the Antichrist will be revealed. And you also see a lot of water here that goes up to the beginning of the pyramids of Egypt. So you kind of see a little bit of flood here happening at this moment. Guys, if you pay attention to this scenario here, that's what me and my wife discussed before. Going back here, you see the following. So we have this limit here to be the start of chaos, perhaps economic collapse together with war, that will generate the chaos necessary for the Antichrist to come. If this is correct, then this also has to be correct. And this is very interesting because if you remember the 4th of December 2023, on the 4th of December 2023, what you will see and what time it is in the constellations and in heaven. So let me just open Stellarium here for you guys to see. Okay, it's open. Now let's go here. We are going to the 4th of December, 6 months after the beginning of chaos, perhaps the rapture. The sun is precisely at the constellation of Scorpio. So take a look at this. Just like it shows in that iPad Go 2, the sun will be in Scorpio on the 4th of December, which will be the limit for the tribulation to start or the peace agreement to be signed. And further than this, so there is a connection here. The sun in Scorpio while the Antichrist is being revealed after a lot of chaos that started with the markets collapsing, perhaps in June. You see also that there's water, it's kind of flooded here, and precisely on the correct calendar, this date here, the 4th of December, will be 3 days after the flood has started, and the 8th month, the month of Scorpio, month of Heshvan, the month of the flood, the month of the flood when it came in the original Noah story. So everything seems to match very, very well. You see here, they are a little bit wrong. They are calling the 4th of December the 9th month, but truly will be the 8th month. So the month of Heshvan, the flood comes in the 17th of Heshvan. Then 1, 2, 3, 4. The 4th day after the flood has come. That's the 4th of December. And that's, we see here precisely the sun in the constellation of Scorpio. And in the iPad Goat, also you see a little bit of flood that reaches a little bit of the pyramids in Egypt. So you see flood happening here as well. So it seems like this timeline that we are seeing, this limit, they are working very well. So perhaps we're seeing in this first week of June the rapture happening around with the economic collapse, around with the war that will be this third world war to bring about the Antichrist after 180 days, 6 months, to the limit of the start of the tribulation. So that's very, very interesting that we are seeing here, and it matches the iPad Go 2 video as well, and that's very interesting. Just like they knew it, that the Antichrist would come, would appear, would sign the deal after the chaos when the sun is in the constellation of Scorpio, which is the constellation of the flood. So very, very interesting, and it seems like this is working very, very well. Now, if all of this passes and we are stuck here, and in June the rapture does not happen, there's no economic collapse, there's no beginning of the Third World War, then we're going back here, and we're going to obviously watch the true Feast of Shavuot, which will be around the beginning up all the way into the middle of the month of July. That's the next full moon after the full moon in the June 3rd and 4th. So the following full moon after this full moon in June, that will be the true Feast of Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks, the Feast of the Wedding. But that would imply for us that there's less than 180 days until the beginning of the tribulation. And if that still passes, then I believe the last draw that we can have is on the 5th month, which will be here the true Pentecost, the true Feast of Wine, the true moment when the church received the Holy Spirit. Just like Dr. Barry said and teaches, and if you don't understand why it's all the way until the 5th month that the Acts 2 Pentecost happened, you have to watch his series of videos. I recommend for you to understand why it is so. But that's precisely the moment when the Holy Spirit came into this earth, the true Acts to Pentecost is the Feast of Wine, because the Holy Spirit is poured like a wine, and they were accused of drinking new wine. So it has to do with this wine. It's precept upon precept, perfectly, like Dr. Barry said. That's the last draw for us into this timeline. That has to be final, otherwise it is not 2030, it's 2031, and then many other patterns starts to crumbles down and starts to be mixed up and be very, very confused. So this is the latest and the last possible draw that we can have from this, because the church was born here. Perhaps the church is leaving here. That's a possibility. We don't know for sure, but that's a very high possibility if we pass all the way until there. For us, that will be from the middle towards the end of August, and people that believe in the Jews, in their feasts, that it is 1 month ahead, it will be around the end to the beginning of August, the end of July and beginning of August. That for us will be the 4th month of the door. Interesting as well, but truly not the Feast of Wine. The Feast of Wine will be from the middle towards the end of August here. That's the last possible draw, and that would imply that we have only 3 months towards the beginning of the tribulation. So imagine all of the chaos that will happen through an economic collapse, through war, through many places attacking other places. Imagine all of this tribulation or this chaos that will form, and imagine that this only have 3 months to conclude until the end, the Antichrist come and bring his new world order. So I think 3 months it's too little. 6 months is the minimum, and if 6 months is the minimum, perhaps we're going here on the second Passover. Everything that people said about second Passover, it's applying to now, the next few days. So be aware, we might be leaving right in the beginning of June. I had a dream also that I saw an ark coming from heaven, and then I entered this ark. So perhaps this is a warning for the 1st of June, when Noah enters the ark. This was the X date. Some channels are calling this the X date. Now it's called, it's being transferred to the 5th of June, which is 1 day after the limit here. So very interesting week of Noah here, right in the beginning of June, especially here in the full moon, when it's truly the second Passover. Get ready, be prepared. We might be leaving in this beginning of June because of all of this, and perhaps everybody will understand perfectly everything once we are there in the glorified bodies. So it's already 1 hour and 30 minutes of video. It is a long video, but I hope that this has blessed you. I hope that this has cleared your mind. I hope that you're thinking about what I just said to you, and I also hope that you are getting prepared, getting ready to meet your bridegroom in the air very soon, because we are approaching the final dates, the final limits for the patterns in the Bible to be completely true to what we understand. So I hope to see each and every one of you that watched all of this video, in this 1 hour and 30 minutes video. I pray that you are blessed. I pray that God keeps you until the day of redemption, and I pray that we meet each other very shortly in the air when our bridegroom, Jesus Christ, the Messiah, Yahushua HaMashiach. If you watched my video of the names, or the video of the elements, which is amazing, watch it. If you watch it, you will understand what I said to you, and I hope to see everybody there very soon. We might be leaving very shortly, guys. We don't have much time in this world, so be prepared, be happy, be excited, and spread the word. Spread the word, spread the love, spread the happiness. Be like Dr. Barry. Be happy. Be spreading this joy. Be like joyful, because you have eternity by your side. You have Jesus by your side. So be joyful. Don't be sad. Don't be like a mad person, a sad person. Don't be like a person that tries to take joy away from people. Be joyful. That's what God wants us to be. That's why I love Dr. Barry as well. So be joyful, spread the word, spread this amazing reality, and be prepared, because we are very, very soon to leave this earth. If we have time, I'll be doing this video here for you guys. But if we don't have time, Jesus himself will tell you how the earth was made, and that would be amazing. So yeah, I'll be leaving here. This answer, I hope that has answered Dr. Barry, if you watched all the way until here. God bless you deeply. I hope that you understand and learn and be free from this Freemason and Masonic and evolutionary concept of Earth. Maranatha, God bless each and every one of you, and I hope to see you in the next video or in the air very, very shortly. Maranatha.